We all share that universal desire, don't we? To not just live longer, but, live better as we age, keep our strength, our sharp minds, our energy. Well, what if cutting-edge science is actually uncovering a way to do exactly that? Today, we're doing a deep dive into some really fascinating global research. It's all centered on a protein called Klotho, and it's pretty profound effects on aging. Our mission here is to give you a shortcut, basically, to understanding one of the most exciting frontiers in longevity research. We'll unpack this incredible discovery that was originally tested in mice and reveal some surprising facts and what it might mean for all of us. But first, to really get why this is such a potential breakthrough, we need to talk about the challenge itself, the silent processes of aging that affect us all. When we talk about aging, we often think about those common things that creep in. There's the physical side, that slow decline in muscle and bone density. And we know that increases the risk of frailty, falls, and unfortunately, serious injuries. It's something most people experience, isn't it? Yep.
Oh, absolutely. And it's really not just physical. Neurologically, what we see is neurons gradually deteriorating. They lose their vital connections. And this leads directly to cognitive decline, and it significantly bumps up the risk for diseases like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. What's really driving the research now is, as global life expectancy keeps going up, finding ways to actually counteract these age-related changes is a huge focus for scientists. We're looking for those, fundamental levers we can pull.
Right, those underlying mechanisms. And that focus seems to be exactly what led researchers to this particular protein, Klotho. It's almost like a hidden key in our biology.
Yeah.
So for those who aren't familiar, what exactly is this protein, especially its secreted form, SKL? What got researchers interested in it even before this specific study?
That's a great question. So Klotho is a protein, and yes, its secreted form, SKL, it's definitely been on the scientific radar for a while, mostly because of observed links to longevity and its potential therapeutic role in neurodegenerative conditions. But the core idea behind this research we're diving into was, could simply boosting the levels of this specific protein, SKL, promote healthier aging across a whole range of factors? They weren't just aiming at one little thing. They were looking for a much more holistic improvement in the aging process itself.
And the team doing this work, it's a really international effort. Led by Professor Miguel Chilon, an IAEA researcher over at the Institute de Neurosciences of the Universitat Autònoma de Barcelona, the INCUAB. Dr. Joan Roig Soriano was the first author, and the findings came out earlier this year, February 2025, in the journal Molecular Therapy.
Yeah, and their method was quite clever. They use what are called gene therapy vectors. You can think of them as highly specialized microscopic delivery trucks. The goal was pretty neat. Basically, make the mice's own cells become little factories, producing higher amounts of this secreted Klotho protein, SKL, all by themselves. And they administered these vectors in two main ways. Intravenously, just into the bloodstream, and also directly into the brain. That was key, to make sure brain cells specifically would also churn out more SKL. It helped them see the widespread effects.
Okay, so a really innovative approach. The obvious next question is, what happened? What did they actually find when these treated mice got older, say equivalent to about 70 in human years? What were the changes they observed?
Well, the results were pretty remarkable, actually. The mice that got the SKL treatment, they lived 15 to 20% longer than the untreated mice.
Wow. 15 to 20% longer lifespan. That's huge. But you mentioned it wasn't just about living longer. The improvements across muscle, bone, and brain, that seems like the really striking part. Does this suggest it's acting like some kind of, master regulator of aging, maybe? Not just hitting individual symptoms?
Exactly. I think that's a really key insight here. What makes Klotho so compelling is that systemic impact. It really hints that there might be these central pathways that, when you treat them, can cascade positive effects across lots of different body systems. It suggests aging isn't just a collection of totally separate problems. When you look at the physical changes, the treated mice showed clearly better muscle strength, their muscle fibers were larger, and they had way less fibrosis. Those are all really clear signs of improved muscle health, supporting that systemic idea.
Okay, so better muscle health.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned bone. How did that look?
Yes, bone too. They saw significantly better bone quality. And interestingly, this was particularly noticeable in the female mice. Their internal bone structure, the trabeculate, think of it like the delicate inner scaffolding of the bone, was much better maintained. So that points towards a potential protective effect against something like osteoporosis, which, as you know, is a big issue with aging, especially for women. It's about keeping the quality and the architecture strong, which is so important for preventing those fragility fractures later on.
That's fascinating, especially the sex difference there. Okay, so shifting from the body to the brain. The cognitive benefits sound just as compelling. You said SKL treatment actually stimulated the formation of new neurons. That sounds incredible.
Yeah.
Yes, the neurogenesis, the birth of new neurons, was a really significant finding. But what's also incredibly important is they saw boosted immune activity right in the hippocampus. That's a brain area absolutely crucial for learning and memory. Under the microscope, they can actually see more microglial cells. These are part of the brain's own immune system. They showed up red in the images they published. And not only were there more of them, but their phagocytic activity, basically their ability to clean up debris, was improved. And that's critical because that cleanup function usually gets impaired as the brain ages. So seeing it improve suggests a real benefit for brain health and resilience.
This is all genuinely groundbreaking work in mice. But of course, the question everyone asks is, what about us? What could this mean for humans? And maybe even more importantly, how would you even deliver a therapy like this to people? What are the practicalities, the challenges?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the researchers are definitely focused on that. One really promising development is that they now have these viral vectors that seem capable of reaching the brain, even when they're just administered intravenously into the bloodstream. That could be a huge deal for human translation because it potentially makes it much easier and safer to deliver this kind of gene therapy. You might bypass the need for, direct brain injections, which are obviously much more invasive. Now, the other option they're considering naturally is administering the Klotho protein itself directly, like a drug, not using the gene therapy vectors. But they do acknowledge the challenge there is still finding a really efficient way to deliver that protein and make sure it actually gets to all the target organs it needs to reach. So while it's another possibility, figuring out the delivery for humans is still a major area of ongoing research.
Right. So it sounds like they're thinking ahead, beyond just the lab bench. Very practical steps. I know the research group already had a patent on using Klotho for cognitive deficits. Did anything new come out of this particular study on that front?
Yes, that's right. They had that earlier patent. And following this more recent, really comprehensive study, they've actually filed 3 new patents. And these are crucial because they specifically protect using Klotho to treat both bone deficits and muscle deficits. And perhaps the most exciting one aims at developing broader therapies, specifically targeting increased longevity overall. So that move really signals they're serious about pushing towards practical applications and potentially commercial development down the line.
Which brings us to their kind of big picture vision, right? They seem to conclude that if, and it's still an if, but if a viable delivery method can be found, SKL could genuinely make a significant difference in improving people's quality of life, and maybe even help build, as they put it, the healthiest society possible. That's quite a powerful thought to end on for the study itself. So just to quickly recap our deep dive today, this protein, Klotho, it really holds incredible promise. It's not just about potentially extending lifespan, but about truly enhancing the quality of life as we age, better physical function, better cognitive function, really living better, not just, longer.
Absolutely. And maybe a final thought for everyone listening to consider. If just one single protein, boosted through something like gene therapy, can have such profound, such widespread benefits against so many aspects of aging, well, what does that really tell us? Does it suggest we might be able to redefine aging, maybe move it from being seen as this inevitable decline to perhaps a condition that can be actively managed, maybe even reversed to some extent? And it makes you wonder what other longevity levers like Klotho might be hiding within our own biology, just waiting for us to discover and, pull. What else could we potentially unlock?
That's a fascinating question to leave us with. It really does feel like this kind of research is opening completely new doors for potentially much healthier futures. We've definitely peeled back a layer on a very exciting frontier today.